This is Radiant Voices Media.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode. In today's episode, it is all about race day. Not training plans, not mileage, not tempo runs, but what it actually is like to run a full marathon. And not just any marathon, but your first ever 42.2 kilometers and finishing it under 3 hours. I'm joined again by Alex, who's been on the show before to talk about his build-up and training. But this time we're diving into the full marathon experience, from the nerves in the days before to standing on the start line, the mental battles mid race, the final push to the finish, and what it felt like to hit that sub 3 goal. If you've ever wondered what it takes mentally to show up on race day and deliver, this conversation is for you. I think there are a lot of jam packed tips here for you runners out there who might be aspiring to do your first marathon, who has run marathons and might be wanting to increase your speed, run a sub 3, whatever it may be. Let's get into it. This is your permission slip to speak your truth, own your story, and laugh through the chaos. Welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast.
Have you been here? Have you been here?
Yeah.
I'm like, nah. They're like, well, I've done all of it.
Yeah. Well, welcome back, Alex. Congratulations. I
Thank
think everybody, episode 49 it is, Alex part 1, leading up to the marathon. He's finished the marathon, and we're, of course, going to be chatting about that today. But how are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, well, firstly, thanks for having me back on. It's always exciting to have a chat. Yeah, feeling really good. I think, yeah, a little bit of a mix of emotions, I guess, after hitting the goal. But yeah, right now, feeling really happy, really content, and keen to, yeah, I've had a little bit of downtime and time to relax. And now, yeah, we push on forward to the next thing in life, which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Well, Alex, maybe remind everybody listening. Again, you guys can go back and listen to part 1 if you want, but remind everybody of kind of what the goal was and essentially what you just did in the Gold Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. So the goal kind of came about around September last year. So I'd run a few half marathons and kind of had that itch for something else, something bigger, and ultimately put my name down for the Gold Coast Marathon, which was start of July this year. So I had around about 9 months, give or take, to prepare myself and hopefully achieve this goal. And based off the times I had achieved in the half marathons and some of the shorter distances, I thought that I was physically able to break that 3 hour barrier. So I put it on myself to kind of not only set the goal of running my first marathon, but also putting a bit of a time goal on it, which, yeah, some thought was a little bit insane, but it just gave me that added motivation and I guess, yeah, something a bit more specific to aim for within the race as well.
Yeah, sweet. Now, I think we're gonna of course go into your prep leading up to this. Not specifically like the months leading up because we've already chatted about that, but the days. But what I'm interested in to start right off the bat is essentially how are you feeling during the run? Maybe break down it for us and let us know 10K, 20K, 30K, what was going through your mind and how did the experience go for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So to start the race, it was very hectic. There's obviously so many people. I think as well, there was a lot of people in that start zone A, which probably shouldn't have been in there. So there was a lot of weaving and it was very hectic for those first probably 3Ks. So it took me a little while I was very focused on where I was stepping and these kind of things. So I wasn't thinking too much about the run. I was just like, don't roll an ankle, just survive these first couple of Ks. And then it started lengthening out a little bit, started finding my rhythm a bit more. But to be honest, probably that first 5K I actually didn't feel great. I think maybe it was because my rhythm couldn't really get the rhythm, weaving in and out of people, and it was just so bunched up and congested. It was a little bit hard to get a bit of a free flow going. So that first 5K, I was just thinking to myself, gee, how am I going to do this for 37 more Ks? So that's obviously not the thoughts you want to have
Yeah.
creeping in your head that early. But I know, from long runs and from training sessions that if you just stick with it, you go through those ebbs and flows. And I'm sure you would know it's a very mental journey during that run. So after probably from about 6K to halfway. I was feeling pretty good, feeling pretty steady, pretty comfortable. And Andy Buchanan, I was listening to something he said a few days prior to the race, and he breaks up his marathons in 5 kilometer blocks, and that's kind of what I was doing. I wasn't really paying too much attention. Say my watch said, 23 Ks. I wasn't going, okay, I've got X amount of Ks till the race finishes. I was just going, all right, let's hit 25. Let's see if we're, around the time goal for that 25K. Then we focus on that next 5K block. And I was breaking it down like that, which really helped me. So, yeah, we hit halfway. We were about 20 seconds under the 3 hour pace. So we were ticking along really well. The crowd and energy was amazing. So that definitely had me feeling really good. And I just knew that, yeah, obviously we're halfway there. I was trying not to get into that mindset of, oh God, I've got to do this again and repeat this. So again, I was just trying to break it down into those 5 kilometer blocks. We were cruising through, and about 30 Ks when you started seeing the carnage of the marathon kick in, people cramping up, people dropping off, people with paramedics. So that was pretty confronting after that little rise around 32K over the bridge. And then that, yeah, really got you thinking, okay, I got to grit the teeth here. It's starting to get hard. From about around that 35K mark, I was with the paces again, was running right next to him. We were having a bit of a chat along the way. And then at the 35K mark, I thought, I'm feeling reasonably good. If I'm able to pick it up here, give myself a little bit of a buffer from the pacing group. If for some reason I was, to tire or get a cramp or something in that last K or so, I should have a bit of a buffer to break that 3 hour mark. And sure enough, it all came together perfectly, and I had a really strong finish and negative splitted the race, which is a positive and goes to show that the strength was there, and in the next marathon that I can push maybe a little bit harder again.
Mm. Yeah, and like I like what you said, like breaking up in 5 kilometer chunks, because I think, like you were saying, it is very mental, and whatever you can do to mentally prepare yourself or like break it up, because I think the last thing that you want, especially courses out there that are 2 laps of something, like the last thing that you want is, oh, I have another like 21.5 kilometers to go, right? Whereas if you break it up 5 kilometers, that's a good way to kind of look at things, because um even like if you have a goal, or even if you're at like that 35 kilometer mark, okay, I'm feeling good. Like you were saying, you can push it. And if your mind lets you, like, just go for it, really. What was something that you were surprised in? So, throughout the whole marathon experience, what's something that you didn't realize, you would feel, or your mental kind of capacity was like what's something that surprised, or you surprised yourself in, throughout the race?
I think, well, firstly, one of the things that surprised me was, everyone's saying, well, the race doesn't start till 32K. Like that was emphasized so much on the day. Like the pre-hype speech was talking about that. And then during the run, people in the pacing group and even the pacers were like, all right, guys, 10Ks to go before the race starts. And I'm looking down at my watch going, all right, we've ticked off 20K and we're getting close to 30. And they're going, this is just a warm up. So whatever has happened, just disregard it.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a surprise. And yeah, something that was quite interesting. I think surprises on the day. I've run the half marathon in Gold Coast, but I think the marathon's a whole nother level in the sense of the crowd, the energy. That was a bit of a surprise. It really wasn't expecting that much of a buzz, and that definitely, yeah, really helped in motivating me along. Also, another surprise was probably the size of the 3 hour pack. I People said, yeah, it's going to be big. A lot of people try to break 3 hours, but it was enormous. I'd probably say anywhere from 600 to 1,000 people just in that pack. So it was super hectic, and then it was pretty surprising to finish a race, and you probably had maybe 50 people around it. So it just goes to show how much people are chasing that goal. Uh, I think other surprises during the race, just very hectic at water stations and these things. It was just it was quite intense, and I think I'm glad I had a lead up race to this race, because getting used to that race energy and the race I guess, challenges like getting water, navigating courses, having people, potentially bumping you, running right in front of you, these little things. Definitely, yeah, it's always a surprise. So I think if there's anyone out there that is doing a marathon or looking to do a race, just yeah, be prepared that it'll be different to a training run,
Mm.
especially with a busy race like Gold Coast.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Is there anything like that's a good tip, but anything else for people, let's say doing Melbourne or Sydney for the first time, like first marathon, anything that else that you learned that you'd like to give a tip out for?
I think for obviously Gold Coast is quite flat, but a few people warn me about during a marathon when your legs are really fatigued and you've got those slight rises in the race later in the race. Like a lot of people, as I said, there was carnage after those, and a lot of people really went down. So for me, I train around the coastal area, so it's quite flat. So for me, there was a few long runs we did with the crew where we went around the Torrens and got a bit of elevation and hill changes and these things. So I think for me going into Gold Coast, that gave me a little bit of confidence. Obviously with Melbourne, not as much, but Sydney, there's a lot of hills. So I think biggest tip would be train race specific. So if you know there's going to be hills, really work on that. Maybe do some extra strength work or cycling, whatever you can do to give yourself an edge so you can go into that race really confident going, you know what, I'm not really phased about the hills. As well as that, I think with hydration and fueling, practice that. Whether you set up a mock aid station during your long run, something like that, where you can kind of go, all right, I'm going to get used to having liquids every 5Ks, going to get used to having my gel every 20 minutes, whatever it may be. Just replicating the race day scenarios as well as the equipment you're going to be using. So make sure you're not opening the box for your new pair of Alpha Flyers and wearing them for the first time for race day. I think you got to get used to, kind of train how you would race.
Yeah, no, those are good tips. And I think like, yeah, one thing that I remember thinking back, like it is quite like you were saying at the 30 kilometer, 35, like seeing people at the side with paramedics and stuff is quite confronting, isn't it? Like I remember Sydney, for example, like it was it was maybe because the marathon's a bit bigger, like a lot more people doing it, but like the amount of people between 30 and 40 kilometers that were out at the sides with paramedics was like probably double what I saw in the Gold Coast. It's insane, really. And that can be quite confronting. Like when you're in the pain cave and you're like, oh my God, am I gonna finish this as well? Like in a couple of kilometers. But maybe going back, let's go back to like your days leading up to it, how you prepped those days, what your carb loading and everything looked like. What did all of that look like for you? Like let's say 2 days out from the marathon.
Yeah, for sure. So I think this is one of the most challenging things for me, to be honest, was the carb load because, again, from a half marathon, from a half marathon or a smaller race, it's a completely different ball game. I did a 3 day carb load, so from Thursday went pretty carb heavy, Friday, and then Saturday as well. Which, funnily enough, come dinner time Saturday, I was struggling to kind of eat anymore. So the fact I did get those extra carbs in for that extra day, I think definitely helped me. But yeah, lead up, it was landed Thursday morning, late morning, got up to Gold Coast and checked into my accommodation and went for a little shakeout. Yeah, so landed Thursday morning in Gold Coast, late morning. So checked into my accommodation and then had my taper session. So that was a bit of a mix of jogging and then a few strides and things just to get the legs ticking over. So that was nice to just land, get that out the way. And then I had the rest of the day to kind of begin. Went to the shops, did a bit of food shopping, got the essentials, and just kind of prepared myself for those next couple of days. So things like the Gatorades, LCMs, rice, just a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
I used ChatGPT to help me with a
There you
shopping
go.
list, so
Yeah.
that was good because I said, "Hey, look, this is these are the numbers I'm trying to hit. This is the food and things that have been suggested to me. Can you kind of create me a shopping list?" So that was quite handy.
Yeah.
Just roll up to Woolies
That's a good
and
tip.
sort that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good tip for anyone prepping a shopping list for a marathon.
Yeah.
Numbers wise, I was aiming around 10 grams per kilo body weight. So for me,
Right.
that was around 750 grams of carbs a day. which roughly equated to calorie wise, I think it was around 3,600 to 3,800, which for me, it's a lot. It's a
Mm,
lot of food.
mm.
And it got to the point where, I was eating things like you might have a late night treat like some M&Ms or chocolate or,
Yeah.
something just to get some quick carbs in.
Mm.
And yeah, it got to the point where I was just like not even enjoying those things I would normally love and have as a
Yeah.
treat because you're just eating so much food.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a little bit of a shock. And it is hard to eat when you're not hungry.
Mm.
So I found, just forcing food down, going, I need to get this in,
Yeah.
need to, get those muscle glycogen stores as high as I can because
Yeah.
I'm going to need it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did because come race day, yeah, felt fantastic later into the race.
Yeah. How did you time it? Like, was it every couple of hours? Did you set a timer? Like when, because I think it's quite difficult to fathom. Like, I think a lot of people listening, you don't practice that. You don't practice carb loading or anything like that. But like you were saying, it is quite hard to essentially. You're like, I force myself to eat basically. Did you have to like eat every 2 hours, or what did your day look like when it comes to actually fueling?
Yeah, definitely. I
Yeah.
think waking up, usually had breakfast, and then in between that, I'd try go some sort of high carb snack. I think a really great hack is looking at your solid carbs versus your liquid carbs
Mm.
because when you've eaten a big meal and you may not necessarily be hungry to eat any more sort of solid food. I found a good hack, for example, was putting I had Morton carb mix with me and I was putting that into a Gatorade, for example. So you're suddenly getting, 2.5 times the amount of carbs you would in a Gatorade, but it's only 600 mils of fluid. So small hacks like that, where you're able to maximize your carb intake without necessarily tipping yourself over the edge, going, "Oh, I
Yeah.
feel sick."
Yeah, yeah, because there's no worse feeling too, waking up in the morning and feeling sick because you've eaten too much the day before, the days before. What did your morning look like that race? Like what time do you like to wake up for the race? What does your prep like look like in the morning leading up to the race?
Yep. So race was 6:15 in the morning, so I was up at 3. I think it was 3. Yep. So 3 o'clock. Woke up. First thing I had a Boss. It was a iced black coffee. So I had that, and reason for that was a little bit of caffeine earlier on. In addition to that, if there was anything I needed to essentially flush out my system, that would normally help do so. So had that as soon as I got up, and then from there had a bit of food. So I went 2 crumpets with honey, then as well as that had a little bit of carb mix as well, but didn't want to overdo it. But yeah, just enough. And then I timed it waking up at that time, so obviously food and stuff could settle. But then there was probably an hour or so window where I was kind of sitting around doing nothing before I then caught the tram in.
Mm.
So that was a little bit that dragged on a bit
Yeah.
because you're kind of like, all right, I'm just ready to go. But then you're kind of sitting there thinking about the race, pondering life. So that was a tough hour. Obviously, there wasn't really anyone to message or anything because it was 3:30 in the
3 a.m.
morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I just did some foam rolling, just try to switch off, played a bit of music, just try to get in the zone, and yeah, then before you know it, it was probably say 4:30 ish where I got the tram in, and then arrived. So gave ourselves a bit of time to check bags in. We needed to go to the toilet, obviously warm up as well, and just not rush yourself because I was fortunate. I was where I was staying was the first tram stop, so I got straight on, no issues. But then that third, fourth tram stop, people they weren't even opening the doors because it was so full, and I just felt sorry for those people thinking, imagine race day, and the thing that's gonna stuff you up is maybe not getting to the races on time or as early as you would like. So yeah, I was fortunate in that sense, but I think everyone, if it's Gold Coast or any race, make sure you maybe have a backup plan. So whether it's pre-book an Uber the night before or just check, see what options you have. Cause yeah, I'm not sure how many of those people didn't end up racing or got there late, but yeah, you would hate to train for all that time and then not make the start line.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was like because I was at Surfers, so probably like a few stops after that. And like you were saying, like I was quite lucky because at the time that I left, I had to make like that first train I couldn't fit, but then the second train, like, we all just shove in basically, but you're shoulder to shoulder, face to face with people, and you're like, "Oh god, this is like the worst." And it's not as short. It was like a 20-minute ride as well, so it's not like it's 5 minutes or
Yeah.
anything, and it's warm in there and everything, and, so yeah, I agree. If you're doing Gold Coast, hopefully they figure that out next year or something, but
Yeah.
it's quite daunting. But what was your mental state like right before the race when you're out on the track, listening to the pre-recorded spiel and everything? What was going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, great question. And I think for me, I was a bit surprised because I was quite at ease race day. I had this kind of sense of calm about me. And I think I wrote a few things down the days leading up about how I feel in a marathon, you kind of earn your opportunity to get to the start line. And looking at it in that perspective and going, I have put it all out there. I don't think looking back at my prep, there's anything I could have done any better. So for me, that put me at a sense of calmness and knowing that regardless of what happens race day, I couldn't have really done anything any better. So kind of got to the start line quite calm and quite excited because you work hard aiming towards a goal for months and months and months, and then the day arrives and it's exciting because you get to celebrate all that hard work. Obviously there is a little bit of an element of you that goes, oh, what if something happens, what if I miss an aid station or get a cramp, or but I try to put that to the back of my mind and just really focus on the positives. And that pre-race speech definitely got you hyped. And yeah, I think it was, as I said, once those first few Ks were gone and the hectic, the start, yeah, I kind of got quite calm, enjoyed the scenery, enjoyed the crowd, and just really enjoyed the whole journey. Because, as I said, when you're running for 3 hours or roundabouts, it's a very long time. So you've got to take take it all in and soak it in and try, I guess, distract yourself in a way as well. So I appreciated those things.
What was your your nutrition plan versus what you did during the race? So what did you take on the course with you? What did you end up using, not using? What did that look like for you?
Yep. So, and this is where I was a little bit iffy because I have I was training with gels all the time, but then there was a few races I'd done in the half marathon blocks where I'd used some caffeine gels just as a bit of a boost of energy, particularly late in the race. So made the call. I had 9 gels on me. From memory, I reckon there was maybe 2 caffeine gels, 6 regular gels. This was science and sport, cis, and then there was one beta fuel with nootropics, which was essentially like a double strength with 200 milligrams of caffeine. So it's like, the alpha gel, which if you're in the hurt locker, you take that. As well as that, my good mate Dylan, who was racing with me as well, he has done a few ultras and these things, and he's big on sodium intake. So he had some sodium tablets on him, and he gave me a couple of those. If I felt any cramps coming on or anything like that as a bit of an emergency. So I had those on me, and as well as that, when we were at the expo, I grabbed a couple of the fixed cramp shots. So I had those on me as well. And I'm glad I did because what actually happened was early in the race, Dylan, he had 10 or 12 sodium capsules because he's quite a heavy sweater. Anyway, he's gone to pop his first capsule and he's dropped the whole bundle. And me and him have just looked as we've kind of run and it's been lost in the crowd. And he's looked at me going, I've got 37 k's left and I've got no sodium tablets. I think he had a couple of the shots on him, but it's very different because it's quite a big hit with those shots. And I just looked at him and I said, mate, take mine. I think I had about 6. So I just said, look, take him. I haven't trained with him. I'm a bit iffy about him anyway. You have him. And yeah, I think that might have saved him in the
Oh,
end.
it's
But
the worst.
yeah, so with the gels, sorry, I kind of went off track there, but with the gels, I ended up taking all 9, which I was aiming for maybe 7 or 8, but I just ended up taking that nootropics, 40 grams of carbs in the last probably 4 or 5K, just because I thought, I don't know if I really need this, but I'm not going to give myself any chance of running out of energy or cramping. So I had that. As well as that, I did end up using the 2 cramp fix shots, which I didn't train with. So it was a little bit of a risk. But at about 14Ks, I felt my hamstring a little bit tight. So I thought, Just in case this gets worse, I'll have a one of the sodium shots,
Yeah.
and then I had that as well around 32K. Which yeah, there was obviously a little bit of an element of risk, but I had trained quite heavy with the gels prior in my long run, so I knew my gut would probably be okay. As well as that, during the race, I didn't stop at any water stations actually. So Dylan and I had flasks, water flasks on us, and had those in the pockets, always one in hand. And then, fortunately, his wife was on course as well, so we kind of did a swap out around the 28K mark, which essentially meant we didn't need to deviate or anything like that. Dylan just kind of needed to pull over to the side of the road at that stop and just grab the flasks and swap them over. But I felt that was good for me because I could just run my own race, didn't have to deviate, just stayed in the same straight line and kept doing that. So for me, that definitely worked. I guess the only negative of that in future races is if you are carrying 750 mil of fluid, it is extra weight, which can drop your efficiency a bit. So yeah, that's something to think about next race. But for me, that was the strategy that worked, and fortunately got through. Um, yeah, with no issues.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting too because you don't train, you don't train to deviate, grab a cup, drink it as you're running, right? It's like a skill on its own as well. So, I think that's like if people can run carrying that weight and they're okay with that, I think that's a good tip out there for people. Or if you can have somebody in the crowd to switch a flask or something, that's a really good tip out there because it does take like it is a skill to grab a cup while you're running, drink it, and then throw it in the bin. You know what I mean? Or like grab a
Absolutely.
couple cups when you're running and there's a whole bunch of other people grabbing a cup. And again, you don't train unless you like specifically train for that. I remember my first marathon, I would like drop a cup and then like not have water that like station or so that's a good tip I think out there if it's your first race and you can like I'm not the type of person that I take like the least amount of gels everything that I can because I hate weight on me. But if you can afford that, then that's a good tip out there for people.
And definitely, and I think in the half marathons I had done, I'd never been great at getting the water in. Whether it's going up your nose
Yeah.
when you're running, or whether, as you said, if you miss a cup. And I think for me, the biggest thing I was worried about during the race was the hydration aspect because it is a bit warmer. So I didn't want to leave anything to chance. So originally the flasks were kind of as like the backup if we didn't make the water stations. And then after we kind of calculated numbers, I thought, well, you know what, I probably don't even need to branch out to those water stations. I can just have the water on me. So I guess for me, I just try to eliminate any risk. But as you said, looking at future races when every second counts, if I want to quicken my time in these things, it's definitely something that I would need to train. And it sounds silly, training, running past an aid station and drinking with a plastic or a paper cup, but you gotta yeah train how you race, as we said before.
Exactly. And like I think people if you've never done a race like that too, where I was in the field and I'm sure you were, there were plenty of cups to grab too, but I've been at races where you run by it and they're still trying to fill them up, so that's another thing. And then there's a crowd around the cups depending on how many people you're running. Like it is a daunting thing as well, like grabbing your cup of water. So yeah, I recommend training if you can,
Yeah.
which, like you were saying, it might look a bit stupid or sound a bit stupid, but it's a good point there. What did you feel like? I think, like you alluded to a little bit of this before, but that 35 kilometers, what did you mentally kind of feel like then?
I think from, as I said, people were harping on about race doesn't start till 30, so that was in my head a little bit. I think probably from 32 is when I started, legs started getting heavy, and I go, okay, this is going to get hard now. Yeah, 32 kind of just went from pretty cruisy to bang. It wasn't like the hardest thing ever at that point, but it was like, all right, this is going to start reaching that point. So I think mentally I was just in that headspace of, I'm not, I haven't trained for 6 months, 9 months. I haven't put in all this work. I haven't, made the effort to fly here, sign up to a race, put this out to the world, all to fall short by a minute or two or be 10 seconds. So I just said, in my mind, there was no way I wasn't So I was just, I was never not gonna get the time. So I was just kind of really locked into that. And something that really helped me during the race, and this might be another great tip to the runners out there, is particularly the stretches where, like Gold Coast Highway, you had kilometers and kilometers in front of you, and you can see runners upon runners ahead. For me, I just switched off, looked down, and just looked at the person in front of me and looked at their shoes and kind of just zoned out and was just looking at their strides and just looking at all the different shoes in front of me and checking them all out. And for me, that was a great way to switch off because you weren't fixated on, oh, I need to run to there and then we're turning. It was just, all right, stride after stride. That paired with, all right, let's just break it down to each 5 kilometer block. For me, that was a massive help. Mentally, I think as you alluded to before, the hard thing at Gold Coast is you do run past the finish line before you head back out and loop back around. So when you're running past that finish line going, it's so close but so far, like
It's like
it's
8 kilometers left or something.
I can see it,
Yeah.
but we've got to go all the way out and all the way back. That was that was a little bit tough at the time, but I knew once I got that turnaround and knew I was on the way back, then I would be okay. Around 30, that was probably 37-ish was that turnaround point, and it was a bit of a ghost town out there because all the crowd and everything's obviously closer to the finish line. So there was a bit of a lower energy at that turnaround point. So you've really got to hype yourself up. In addition to that, people are dropping left, right, and center, and it can zap the energy out of you a bit. So you really just got to try amp yourself up and just really lock in. And for me, it was going to that place where I know I've done the hard sessions and I know I've done the hard long runs during the prep. That gave me the confidence that this isn't something I haven't dealt with before, and just push through. And then before you know it, you hit the 3 kilometer to go. And then when you hit that 1 kilometer to go, it was the longest kilometer I've ever run in my life, especially when you turn and weave into the finish line.
Yeah.
But I knew once I was there, I knew adrenaline would get you over the line.
Mm. What was the crowd like? Because that's one thing that's quite interesting as well. Like you probably, experienced it with other races and everything, but I think the crowd for a marathon is a bit different sometimes because you get it all throughout the race, some aspects more so than the other. I think what was it, the highway, there's not much of a crowd there, but like the areas in near the water and everything, like it was quite crowd heavy. What was that experience like for you, and what mentally did that do for you?
Oh, it was awesome. It's something that, and again, you can't replicate that during training. So that's another 10% you might get on race day purely off the vibe and the energy of the crowd. And it was awesome. People that you knew who had raced the day before. People who were friends of friends or family who have flown up to watch, or complete strangers yelling out your name, your bib number, whatever it may be. It was just contagious, the energy. And yeah, it really did make a massive difference. I think as well, particularly because that 3 hour pack was so big, you even had runners coming back the other way who were going, crap, that's the 3 hour
Yeah,
pack.
yeah.
Like, have a look.
Yeah.
And I think, because there's such a big hype around that 3 hour barrier mark, that because that pack was so big, when we were cruising through the streets, there was a lot of attention at that pack. So yeah, it definitely made you feel good. And as I said, yeah, the energy is contagious, even amongst the runners. People who were getting extra water cups and dishing them out to other runners, and people that were strangers but just uplifting each other. I think that's just something that, yeah, you can't really describe the feeling you get from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're all in the same place mentally, physically, right? So the running community is a very, yeah, interesting like community basically, like especially on race day. Just reaching out to strangers means a whole lot, and you don't get that anywhere else, I think, other than like race day and stuff like that. Um, because when you're training, Alex, you what was the longest distance you did on your long run that you got up to?
So longest was 30, I reckon it was 36 maybe,
Yeah.
or 35 and a
Yeah,
half
yeah,
from memory.
that's pretty
Yeah.
average, I reckon. So, did anything mentally come up at that 35, like 36 kilometer during the run? Because if it's your first marathon, you've technically never run anything more than that. Like, did anything come up mentally at that minute, or how did that feel?
Yeah, and this is something that was I was probably the most nervous for going into the race because as you said, once I hit that 35.5 from memory, I reckon that was the longest session. Once I hit that, it was an unknown. I've never ever run this far. Every 5 meters, 10 meters, 100 meters, kilometer was just like, okay, this is new territory. So I think after I hit that, funny for me because that was the point in which I think a bit of a switch flipped, and I went, okay, I need to start trying to get some distance on the pacing group here. So for me, that's kind of when I picked it up a notch, and it was my best, yeah, the best 5K split of the race. But yeah, I think I saw it as a challenge because it was the unknown. Going, okay, I haven't been here before. Let's see how far I can push it. But then at the same time, it was scary territory because especially my quads were really beat up. And that last probably K and a half, I was like, just don't go on me here. Just hang on. So yeah, it was exciting but scary, mixed. Yeah, it was 50 different emotions to be honest.
What was
I have dealt with blisters and hot spots a lot of the time through my running, particularly I think as you get in a race shoe and run quicker for a longer period of time, you tend to get toes hitting the end of the shoe potentially, or yeah, hot spots for me it's around my arch and those kind of things. So my feet were completely mummified and wrapped up and all of that, but I still did get a bit of an arch blister pop up probably halfway through, and I was a bit worried because it was really sore, and I knew straight away I was like, all right, this has gone deep, and I was worried that if that weren't to kind of that pain were to go away, I knew I was going to start running and slightly offloading my foot, and then that would offload obviously my muscles, and then I could potentially cramp up or fall apart. So that worried me. But sure enough, yeah, it kind of just vanished after that halfway point. So that I didn't really worry about that. The hammy 14K mark, it started grabbing a little bit, and I actually went into that race probably the last 2 3 weeks of training. I had a little bit of a hammy niggle hanging around. It wasn't bad, but it just did tighten up pretty quick. So again, I was worried that I had 28 Ks to go and my hammy I was feeling it a little bit. So that was a little bit concerning. Hence, I had that sodium gel, which I haven't trained with, but I thought I'm going to have to just to try rule out any chance of this getting worse. So yeah, those things. As for calves, were pretty fine. That hammy issue, yeah, went away. Blisters went away. I think it was just the quads, and maybe that was purely off the fact that because I was running for so long, my glutes tired out, and then kind of your lateral quad takes a lot of the load. And for me, that was even post race. That was something that took a week and a half to settle down. They were quite beat up. So I think yeah, looking forward now and going, okay, whether I need to do certain bitted strengthening stuff to prevent that, or maybe, yeah, whether it be a few more hills or these kind of things just to strengthen up that area a little bit more. But yeah, that's something that did catch me off guard because I haven't really had any quad issues. So
Right. Okay. What kind of, because you that's an interesting thing that you brought up, like you taped your feet and things like that. What kind of gear did you bring out, like aside from nutrition and things like that? Was that the only thing that you specifically had to do was tape up your feet, or was there anything else that you prepped for the marathon in that regard?
yeah, and I think this is a really important thing for all the runners out there who might be signing up for their first race or getting into running is, and I just equated what are all the controllables I can control and how can I minimize these? So whether it be blisters, whether it be tape over the nipples, things like this, where it's like, what could potentially ruin my race? So straight away, it was like, okay, tape over the nipples so I don't get because it's hot. I'm going to sweat, and that's something that could ruin my race. Then obviously had the blisters and taped up my feet in even places that I haven't really had blisters before, but kind of just went a bit overboard. Just going, okay, let's try rule this out as a possible issue in the race. Also, if people have any chafing issues or anything like that, I'm fortunate enough that fortunate that I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, looking at whether it be body glide or whether it be looking at split shorts compared to half tights or whatever it may be. As well as that, I had sunglasses, which I wasn't sure if I was going to race in them or not, but I did in the end, and I'm glad I did because the sun did peek through it a few times. So again, just being as comfortable as you can. Um, Other than that, I did have some anti-inflammatories with me, some painkillers, and also some anti-inflammatory gel. Didn't use that. I did have a few painkillers prior to the race. I think that was probably, again, a little bit more mental, just going, okay, with this hamstring hanging around, a little bit iffy. If I can't feel it, it can't be an issue.
Yeah. One way to
So
look at it. Yeah. That's fair enough. What was going through your mind when you saw the finish line and you were running through that finish line?
I did had a bit of carry on with a bit of a celebration,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was just getting caught in the moment. I did have a little, fist pump to myself over that finish line. I think it was a sense of relief, pride, obviously exhaustion as well. But yeah, multiple things I was feeling at that moment. And then yeah, when Dylan came over, he broke away a little bit earlier from the pack than I did, and he finished a little bit earlier than me. But he was there waiting at the finish line, and yeah, I got a little bit emotional there, teared up a little bit, and yeah, I just think because I've sacrificed and put so much into it, and yeah, it was just it was something that I never thought I was going to achieve. Put myself, in my shoes years ago. I never thought a marathon would ever be something I could do, let alone kind of breaking 3 hours, which is a standard a lot of people strive to, and a lot of people may never achieve in their lifetime. So I felt very fortunate, and yeah, a sense of different variety of emotions to say the least.
What was going through your head? What was the
So yeah, we hung around the expo, or hung around post race a little bit, just celebrating with friends. Congratulations, and yeah, got the tram back to the accommodation. I was with my mates Sam and Chad, who they ran the half marathon the day before, so they were moving around. Not great, but definitely better than I was. So I kind of had a shower. We went to Pacific Fair, which was like an 800-meter walk away, so that wasn't great. Yeah, just had a massive lunch, and yeah, just soaked it up. And after that, I just got back to the accommodation and had a bit of downtime. Just laid on the bed and didn't move for a long time, and then yeah, after that we had a few drinks to celebrate, but yeah, I think a lot of people underestimated how much it would take out of them, including myself. So it was wrapped up pretty early into the night. But yeah, that was the immediate after celebrations. As for the, I guess, week or so after the race, so I didn't do anything for a week. So yeah, I had a full week off running completely, gym. Yeah, didn't really do much at all, just the general walking around day to day. And that's definitely something I needed and felt like I deserved. Which, yeah, it's strange going from training, almost every day out of habit to then doing nothing. But I think emotionally and physically, I was just drained. And I think my central nervous system was pretty cooked as well because, yeah, 4 or 5 days after I did get sick, so I just had a general cold and felt knocked around a bit. Yeah, sleep wasn't great the first few days after as well, which was interesting. And obviously, your body rest is the priority, and the fact I couldn't sleep as well, I just felt like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get sick here. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I did.
Yeah. Yeah. That's quite common, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Running wise, I did a few little jogs that week after. Um, so yeah, so it'd be that second week after the marathon, just a few casual jogs. But again, quads felt it quite a bit, so I didn't want to push it too much. So very slow, very cruisy. Last week picked it up a little bit more, and then yeah, this week a little bit more again. But yeah, I'm just listening to my body because it is a pretty you are quite fragile in this period, and you've got to play it smart. So, for example, Friday, like I had a bit of tempo. We're trying to get a little bit speed into the legs again, but I just wasn't really feeling up to it. So, ended up just doing some gym work instead and trying to strengthen up a few areas, just because I feel like that's got to be a priority moving into this next block. But
Yeah.
yeah, and again, that's just a tip I would say. Don't be too fixated on numbers, or look at what other people are doing, because everyone's different. I don't recover very fast. A few of the guys I train with recover super fast. That they could run or do a session the day after a long run, whereas I'm not moving around great.
Yeah.
So yeah, just learn. You learn a lot about yourself during the prep and also after. I think for me, obviously, you got to be cautious because it's my first marathon, so you're not sure how exactly you're going to respond. So it's definitely a work in progress at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Did you get any of the like post marathon blues that people get when it comes to emotion and things like that? Because I think it's a you spend, in your case, 8 to 9 months prepping for something. This is like the main focus. You sacrifice a whole lot, and then like you were saying, going from running almost 7 days a week or however long to doing nothing at all, and then not exactly knowing potentially what's next, really. What did that feel like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that I wasn't sure how I was gonna respond or feel, because I think we talked about this on the first podcast as well. And it is funny as well because just after the race, I had a lot of congratulations and support and love, which was amazing. But then I also had a few people asking what's next. And I'd literally, I've just finished a marathon an hour ago, and I've already had people saying, "Oh, well, you've done it. What's
Yeah.
next?"
What's
And I was
now?
just thinking that's funny, because I think us as humans, it's always about that,
Yeah.
that next thing.
Yeah.
And I made it's something I've been working on over the last few years. Is when you do have that achievement, sense of achievement, enjoy it instead of worrying so much about that next phase. So for me, I was really content, I was really happy, and I wasn't too fixated on worrying about what that next race is or what that next goal is. I was just like, I've reached the top of the mountain. I'm going to enjoy the view for a bit, because there's always going to be another mountain. So let's just enjoy this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, that week after, I kind of had this sense of calm, this sense of, I was really proud. And yeah, I think this sense of, I've earned this right to celebrate this and just enjoy the moment. So yeah, I think as for blues, not necessarily. I think it was kind of a sense of like, yeah, just I was just content. And then yeah, fast forward maybe another week.
Yeah.
That's when I started going, oh, I had the email for the Melbourne
Yeah.
ballot. So, and yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. But yeah, I had a few things pop up going, okay, maybe it's time to start thinking about it
Yeah,
now.
yeah. Before we get into that, because I did see that on your, I think you posted about that.
Yeah.
Looking back now, it's been three weeks, I think, since the race. Is there anything that you would have done differently, do you think? Like anything that you're reflecting on through the full marathon that you think, ah, that was a good point, to myself. I'm going to do this next race differently. Or is there anything with the whole experience, whether it's prep, whether it's the after, whether it's during the race, that you think you really want to change next time, whether good or bad?
Yeah, I think for me, trying to train with people more, I think is a big one. It's a little bit hard because everyone's so schedule based. You can't always do it, but that's something that I found, particularly with those hard sessions later in the block, those really hard long runs and those long run sessions. There was a couple that I was fortunate enough to do with people around me, and it's a different sense of, yeah, you can push your body more and your mind more when you've got others to bounce off. You've got others encouraging you. You've got others pulling you along, and that's something that I felt, because I'd probably say 98% of my training was solo. Just when you get a feel for that and when you kind of see the difference it can make, then you go, all right, maybe I can unlock another level of performance here just by solely, training with others a little bit more. So that's something that, neither a negative or positive, but it's a learning that I've gone, okay, this is something that I can carry into the next block. In addition to that, I'm one that I got the tunnel vision for the goal. So for me, there's only so much energy and time you can put to all aspects of life, and I feel like for me it was very training took up a whole lot of time, business took up a whole lot of time, and then sometimes your social relationships and those kind of things can suffer a little bit. So for me, I feel like in this next block, yes, you can be disciplined, absolutely, but you can relax a little bit on it as well. And I think I went extremely full on, like no drinking, curfews, like these things, because I wanted to make sure I left no stone unturned. But I think there is an element of there of you're still allowed to enjoy life, and it doesn't need to be as hardcore as that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's totally fair. And I like the training with others because I think over the years that's something that I've realized as well. I remember going back a few years ago, it was only solo, even the long runs. Whereas now I probably do similar to what you mentioned, like 90% solo, but specifically the last few months when it's the, 30 to 35 kilometers, not necessarily. And I think like people listening, that doesn't mean you necessarily need to run, shoulder to shoulder with somebody the entire, but like whether it's going to a group and running 20 kilometers with, a group or something like that, just having people around you, I think it's a lot different feeling than, and that's anything, whether it's running, swimming, cycling. I think mentally and it's probably like it goes to when you're actually at the marathon, you have so many people around you as well that like that you get an adrenaline rush through that. So I think it just helps you through, the hard times really. Being around people in general.
100%. And it's almost a distraction, really, isn't it? If you're having a chat or, you sometimes you look down at your watch if you're solo and go, all right, it feels like I've been running for an hour, I've done 10 minutes. And then it can be the complete opposite effect when you're running with others. So, yeah, as you said, I think it's a great thing to implement.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go back now. I think you posted about it, Melbourne coming up, but what I guess is what's coming up for you now?
Yeah,
That question.
yeah, definitely. So I think, the last few weeks it's been nice to do, a little bit more of a relaxed training regime, bit of jogging here and there, and getting in the gym and just, you know, not being so hardcore on it. Not worrying about, you know, fueling, hitting X amount of carbs and things before sessions or whatever. So that's been quite nice. But then, as you said, you get the itch again, and I was fortunate enough to get into the ballot for the Melbourne Half Marathon. So that'll be mid October. So I'm looking forward to that. And just prior to that will be City of the Bay, which is obviously a really big event here in Adelaide. And I'm doing the 12-kilometer there, and then into Melbourne. I think it's 3 weeks after. So it's a nice little, I guess, lead up prior to that race. So yeah, really looking forward to that. After that, I'm not too sure. Maybe Victor in December. I've heard that's a great event, and next year haven't thought too much about it, but yeah, I would love to work towards another marathon and with the hope to qualify for one of the majors. So whether that be, I think the cutoffs are varying, but I'd say it needs to be at least a 255. But yeah, I think anywhere from 255, 248, it'd be nice to crack 250, but I know that's going to be a whole nother step up again. So I think for marathons, I'm all right. I'm content at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Just
fair.
do a bit of shorter stuff and maybe a bit of track stuff over summer, couple of 3 and 5Ks. Because I'm not sure about you, but I've never really done like an all out. Like my PBs have often been during a half mara, or my 5K's been during a 10K, something like that. So it'd be nice to just actually give these shorter events a real well and see, how far you can push them too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think doing like a 3K, sorry, or a 5K, like all out, feels a lot different too than a marathon in its own. Yeah,
And a few people even say the 5K is a worse a
worse.
pain,
Yeah,
which you think, oh,
yeah. But I think the immediately after is probably, yeah, technically a bit worse sometimes.
exactly.
What's one thing that you learned about yourself throughout this whole experience?
I was actually thinking about this on the way because I thought it might have come up. And I think for me, I learned so much about myself, both mentally and physically. I think mentally, I have got really strong confidence in myself and the ability to do hard things and go to places that prior I may have quit, and I think that's massive because, and as I said, with that attitude in that last 7Ks of the race, going, stopping's not even an option. Like, I know I'm going to get this. And sure enough, I did. And that gave me a great confidence in going, if you put your mind to something and really grit the teeth, you can get it done. So I think, yeah, mentally, just a really great sense of confidence and, yeah, the ability to do hard things. I think physically, I learn a lot about my body and a lot about recovery, what things work for me, also the difference between, soreness and potential injury, and also the mindset around that and not freaking out. Because I think whenever prior I got a little, niggle or something pop up, it would immediately be, oh crap, here we go again. My prep's over. I'm not going to be able to race. Whereas, I took a lot more of a relaxed approach and went, it's going to be okay. There's always something you can do. We've just got to pull it back a little bit, reassess, do a few things, and then you'll be back again. And I think the marathon prep is a roller coaster, and just having that sense of calm and learning a lot about my body was a big thing because, yeah, as I said prior, years ago with a lot of injuries and things through football, I thought a marathon was never ever something I thought I was going to be able to do. And then, prior to going into this block, meeting with physios and exercise physiologists and just looking at my biomechanics and, tendencies and where injury risk may be, and then going, okay, in order for me personally to be able to run a marathon, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to work on. And sure enough, I was able to get there. So that's another thing that I would encourage to a lot of runners out there. If you're continually getting injured, if you have reoccurring injuries, if you have anything that is hanging around and not going away, don't be afraid to reach out to health professionals and get a different set of eyes on it. And ultimately, they can help you, you know, create a stronger version of yourself and get there. Because I truly think um, vast majority of people can get there if they really put their mind to it and commit to the cause. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of options out there around Adelaide, running specific options and things like that. New technologies that are coming out. So yeah, definitely reach out, I think. But is there anything, I mean, it's only been, I guess, 3 weeks post the run, but is there anything, whether it's, what you've just mentioned, that you think you're going to bring into your everyday life now? Anything you've learned?
Yeah, and yeah, it's a great question. I think just the discipline I've got from the marathon training. I think I've noticed my procrastination's a lot lower, and I think that's purely off the fact, when I had to fit in these sessions and runs before work or other commitments, it was like, okay, this is the window I've got to get it done. I've got to get it done. If I'm 5 minutes late, I'm 5 minutes late to the next thing, and just really dialing in and making it a non-negotiable. I think that was the biggest thing for me. Really has changed my life in the sense of the discipline and just not seeing it as a chore, but like, this is just something we're doing. Don't even think about it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then it becomes habit too, right? And
Oh,
that just
exactly.
makes it even easier, I think sometimes. Maybe for those people out there that is thinking about a marathon or has one coming up, what are some, out of everything you've learned, some essentials you think people need to think about, prepare for, purchase? What are some essentials, maybe 1 to 5 things that you think is worthwhile?
I think number one again would be whether it be a physio, EP, someone, or even running coach themselves. Which, yeah, running coach was going to be the big number two. There is either getting a running coach or we talked about runner on the last episode. If you're just starting out, that's great. But I think if you're really looking to hone in your training and get an individualized program, get a running coach. They can work closely with, they can monitor things, they can change things as needed if niggles pop up and all of this and customize it to you. I think that is the most important thing because just getting one off the internet, one size doesn't fit all. And I think that's the biggest thing that I learned through my journey. My programming was all over the shop, but we eventually got it to where we wanted to. But to start out, it wasn't as simple as that. So that's definitely well, I've got it as number two. Number one would be getting yourself in the position physically to start a marathon block. So for me, it was maybe doing 3 or 4 runs a week, just trying to build the general aerobic base. And around that, it was all the strength training. So for me, the strength training, especially the first half of the marathon block, was harder than the running itself because it was grinding. Um, it was stuff that was quite boring, glute stuff, hamstring stuff, all this isometric, like a lot of stuff. It wasn't fun, and particularly like I enjoy running, getting outside, whereas being in the gym wasn't ideal, but I needed to do it to get myself strong enough to be able to handle the training. So I think, whether it's getting a physical analysis and seeing what you need to improve on, or if you have had any previous niggles, going, okay, how can I get myself to a point that I know this isn't going to pop up, or give it the best chance of not popping up. So yeah, number one, get yourself strong enough. Number two, coach. Number three, we talked last episode about footwear as well. I think that's really important, footwear and equipment. And, having a good rotation, having a shoe that is for a purpose. So an easy run shoe, session shoe, race shoe. And in addition to that, your gels and nutrition. Um, I think number four would be train how you race. So implement those strategies, closer to the block. If you've got a really big long run, all right, well, let's practice some of the carb loading. Let's practice some of the, sleep um, strategies or things you might use. Let's practice wake up time. Let's practice that coffee in the morning, because you don't want to do one of these things for the first time on race day, else it could really hurt you. So that's probably number four. And number five is just enjoy the journey. It is a massive journey. It is one that first week or two of your marathon block, you'll be going, I don't know if I can do this. And then fast forward and you keep consistency and you'll get there. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I talked about it last time as well, is just keep stacking the days and not worrying too much or looking too far ahead. Just focus on the current session and just trust, that if you keep doing the right things, that you can get there.
Mm. Yeah, I think I agree with all of those points for sure. Like, especially I think the coaching and the getting yourself prepared, right? I think like those sometimes too go hand in hand, right? If you
Yep.
don't exactly know what to do, get a coach. And I think too, if you can find somebody like you were saying, I mean, going with Rana or these online like one size fits all approaches is okay. It's sometimes it's a good place to start, but I think too, like if you can find somebody local, it it makes all of the difference as well. Just having somebody that you can sometimes see, whether you're not like, even if you're not actually training with them or they're not coming out, to see you train or something, just having somebody local, I think makes all the difference. Because chances are there's going to be other people in, the place that you're living that might be coached by them that you can train with, or they might be on a race and, just getting those little tips is I think very different than having somebody who is online thousands of meters away in another country sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And your coach is local, and I think yesterday's a great example. Absolutely horrendous weather, and it might be a matter of they can see that, and you go, oh hey, let's do a treadmill alternative session or something like that. And as you said, just being able to touch base and develop that relationship's really important. And yeah, as I said, I think the biggest thing is that adaptability, because it's never going to be a complete smooth sailing process. You're going to have something come up, sickness, injury, personal reasons. There's a lot of things that can happen. So yeah, I think coach out of all of them is probably the number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, congratulations, Alex. Congratulations on finishing 3 hours on it all. Amazing. And thank you again for coming back. I think this was great. Again, hopefully a lot of runners out there who are doing, whether it's Melbourne coming up, Sydney coming up. What's in Adelaide? Brasa? Brasa's coming
Barossa,
up, I
yes,
think. Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So, hopefully you guys get something out of this. I think you will. But yeah, thanks for coming on again.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome. Cheers.
Alrighty, everybody. Thank you for listening once again. Head to the show notes. You can check out the sponsor links there if you'd like. You can also find Alex down there. Thanks, Alex, once again for coming on. Thank you all for listening. I will talk to you all in the next episode.